You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
The evidence will show that Laken fought. She fought for her life.
Day one in the trial of a migrant charged with murder, a case that became a political flashpoint in America. Just ahead, a breakdown of the arguments from the prosecution and defense.
Of not issuing ethics reports on people who are no longer members of Congress. I think it would open a Pandora's box. I think it's...
The battle begins over information about Matt Gaetz, and it's mostly coming from one side of the aisle. What Republicans are saying about the chances Gaetz has to win confirmation as Attorney General. Then obesity in the United States, a report that says half the country could soon be a part of the growing epidemic. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Tonight, the high-profile trial of the man accused of killing Georgia nursing student Laken Riley has begun. It is a case that became a focal point of this year's election cycle. Republicans linking that crime allegedly committed by Jose Ibarra, an illegal migrant, with President Joe Biden's border policies. Ibarra illegally entered the U.S. in 2022 and was allowed to stay awaiting his immigration case. Tonight, a full day of emotional testimony from Laken Riley's roommates, warning the details of this case could be disturbing to some. Ibarra, accused of killing Riley on her morning run, sat in court listening to the details, translated for him through headphones. Prosecutors say Ibarra killed Riley as he tried to sexually assault her, and the defense argues there's not enough evidence to prove it.
He went hunting for females on the University of Georgia's campus. And when Laken Riley refused to be his rape victim, he bashed her skull in with a rock repeatedly.
It's an effort to explain a tragedy, but it's not based on evidence.
Prosecutors say Ibarra's DNA was found underneath Riley's fingernails. Ibarra has pleaded not guilty and has waived his right to a jury trial, meaning this case will be decided by the Athens-Clarke County Superior Court judge. And tonight, 2 U.S. cities making an attempt to keep illegal foreign gangs off their streets. In Chicago, new documents reveal the police department has arrested at least 30 people believed to be a part of the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang since the beginning of this year. Meantime, in Tennessee, officials saying they believe the group is present in places like Nashville in large numbers. The National News Desk's Kylie Walker reports.
The TBI director warns the Venezuelan gang is here in force and they're on a path to increase the violence. That's why they're now asking the governor for funding to address it. The TBI says not only is a dangerous gang growing nationwide, but it's impacting every major city across Tennessee.
They have a pathway to more violence.
The TBI director, David Roush, warning Governor Bill Lee in a budget hearing Tuesday about the rising threat of a violent criminal group, Tren de Aragua.
They're back in all of our major cities. They are running human trafficking operations.
Roush says the Venezuelan gang does not hesitate to attack their opponents in public.
Recently, there was a video that they shot where they shot an individual, a cartel member, 31 times, broad daylight, on video and posted it to social media.
Roush says they'll next engage in more retail theft before taking on the drug trade. These concerns we took to Governor Bill Lee. What measures are being implemented to protect communities across Tennessee?
Well, first of all, I think that part of the reason President Trump was elected last week is because people in this country are tired of gang members from Venezuela, for example, coming across our border. And that policy change that will occur in the next few months.
So at the federal level, we know there could be changes. At the state level, are we doing anything in the meantime to tackle these issues?
Well, I think that's what that funding request hearing was about. They made requests for resources and personnel to attack particular crime issues in our state, and we'll review those budgets.
Congressman Andy Ogle says this is an issue he's been looking at very closely.
Every small town in America is a border town because of the immigration crisis.
Congressman Ogle says he's also been in contact with President-elect Donald Trump on the issue.
We will begin deporting individuals who are here. Of course, you've got to prioritize, but those who are here with violent intent.
And new details in the case of a man FBI agents are accusing of being a homegrown terror suspect. Authorities say Anas Saeed is someone who has been on the FBI's radar for years. Cell phone video here from last Friday when FBI agents arrested Saeed, a 28-year-old U.S. citizen living with his mom and brother in Houston. In 2017, Saeed told FBI agents he started to believe in ISIS ideology as early as 2015, but no longer followed the propaganda. Then, after October 7th, when Hamas attacked Israel, the FBI says Saeed increased his violent rhetoric online.
He bragged that he would commit a 9/11 style attack if he only had the resources. And he expressed the desire to join the U.S. military just so he could commit an act once he was inside their ranks.
Saeed faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted, although his mother told a local Houston station the FBI's story is, quote, fake news. And tonight, a potential ceasefire agreement is on the table between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. CNN says that Lebanese officials are optimistic the militant group will agree to terms as early as next Monday. Some Arab media outlets doubt that an agreement is actually that close. Meantime, a World Bank report outlines how Israel's conflict with Hezbollah is estimated to have cost Lebanon's economy $8.5 billion in losses and damages over just the last 13 months. This as we learn more about Israel's attack on Iran in late October. Axios is reporting that Israel, in fact, did hit a secret nuclear weapons facility. According to U.S. and Israeli officials, a strike destroyed equipment Iran was using for explosive devices needed to detonate uranium in a nuclear warhead. The Iranian mission to the UN didn't comment when asked about that attack. On Capitol Hill, Donald Trump's cabinet nominations creating divisions on the right as even Republicans are asking whether they can make it through the confirmation process. National correspondent Matt Gelka dives into the growing controversy.
Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago this week touting his cabinet picks. The latest selection to raise eyebrows, known vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary.
We want you to come up with things and ideas and what you've been talking about for a long time, and I think you're going to do some unbelievable thing. Nobody's going to be able to do it like you, and boy, does he feel it in his heart.
RFK Jr. has previously suggested that he'd try to remove fluoride from the water supply and that the COVID virus is an ethnically targeted bioweapon.
COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
The pick has divided Republicans and Democratic senators, along with some in the health community. Republican Tommy Tuberville calling it an absolutely brilliant pick by President Trump, and Democrat Ed Markey saying he's dangerous, unqualified, unserious. Trump's other controversial pick, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, is reportedly making calls to improve his confirmation chances in the Senate. Some Senate Republicans want a House ethics investigation into allegations of a sexual relationship between Gaetz and a then 17-year-old girl to be made available to them as they go through the nomination process. House Speaker Mike Johnson says it shouldn't be released, adding it would be a terrible precedent. Incoming Senate Republican leader John Thune looks to already be in a tight spot balancing Trump's picks with his conference's votes.
I just know that the nomination isn't formalized yet, but when it is, we'll process it in the way we typically do and provide our advise and consent role.
The Wall Street Journal reports there are already more than enough Republican senators out on Gaetz and would sink his potential confirmation, with North Dakota Republican Kevin Cramer openly asking if it would even be worth getting him over the finish line. Reporting on Capitol Hill, I'm Matt Gelka for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Matt, thanks. Executions in Texas can no longer be stopped by a legislative subpoena like the one used to save death row inmate Robert Robertson last month. Right before Robertson's scheduled execution, lawmakers issued a subpoena for him to testify a few days later. But today, the Texas Supreme Court ruled this cannot happen again. As for Robertson, he will still be put to death unless the governor steps in. Around 1,000 General Motors employees are getting laid off globally. They were notified this morning. The car company says it is now focusing on speed, excellence, and efficiency. It comes as car manufacturers around the world face tough competition as they adapt to a rise in electric vehicle demand. GM has around 150,000 workers. The sights and sounds of 700 hotel workers walking off the job at Virgin's Hotel Las Vegas just before dawn this morning. The decision coming after a long and highly publicized fight for a new contract. The work stoppage at Virgin Hotels, just the first open-ended strike in 22 years for the Culinary Workers Union, the largest labor union in Nevada that has 60,000 members. The union says the 700 workers at Virgin Hotels were offered a contract that would amount to 30 cents more on wages each year over 5 years, which they called an insult. Housekeepers, cocktail and food servers, porters, and bellhops were among those on the picket line today. Coming up, Tropical Storm Sarah could get stronger as it heads towards the United States, how it's expected to impact Florida in the coming days. Then a major city seeing a huge spike in an unusual strain of pneumonia that's attacking young children. How to protect yourself and your family. And later, what students at Ohio State University are demanding after discovering toxic mold growing in their dorms. We'll be right back. Tropical Storm Sarah currently crossing the northern coast of Honduras as it approaches the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. It is bringing life-threatening surges, extremely heavy rainfall, and potentially catastrophic flooding and mudslides to Honduras and Belize over the weekend. The National Hurricane Center now forecasting Sarah to dissipate as it re-enters the Gulf of Mexico. The remnants of the storm could re-strengthen as it turns towards the United States, but there is a cold front coming to the Gulf next week that will likely keep the storm from reinvigorating. Still, heavy rains and increased winds will most likely hit Florida middle to late next week. Taking a look at your money, stocks and bond prices took a hit today after a solid retail sales report that suggests the economy is strong and may not need another rate cut. Skeptics say the Fed with its recent rate cuts, is focusing too narrowly on sticking to its 2% inflation rate. And credit card debt in the United States just reached $1.17 trillion, according to the New York Federal Reserve. But that's not stopping Americans from planning to increase their holiday spending. The National News Desk's Atra El-Nashar reports.
This holiday season, American consumers will once again prove they know how to spend. The average consumer is expected to spend about $900 on gifts, decorations, and other seasonal items, according to the National Retail Federation, an all-time record. Retailers are already feeling the love. Census data out Friday shows spending in October was up 2.8% over the past year.
I would say that most people are doing pretty well. They don't always feel that way, understandably so. Prices have gone up 20% over the past 3 years, and wages have only gone up 17%.
For many, that's where credit cards come in. According to the New York Federal Reserve, Americans now owe $1.17 trillion in credit card debt. That's about an 8% increase from a year ago. Sounds high, but it is an improvement.
The year before and the year before that, we were in the 15 to 17% kind of range for annual increases. So the rate of change has slowed.
About half of credit card holders pay off their balances in full each month. According to Bankrate, they use cards to get points and other benefits. But for those who don't and are racking up debt, interest rates can make it a tough hole to dig out of.
We think about the average credit card balance, which is up to $6,400 now. If you make minimum payments at that average interest rate around 20%, you're in debt for 18 years and you end up paying $9,400 in interest.
The Fed is steadily cutting rates as inflation gets closer to their 2% target. But this week, 2 new readings on consumer and wholesale inflation showed slight increases. Members of the Fed weighing in on an uncertain future ahead of their next meeting in mid-December.
I certainly wouldn't take another ease in December off the table. But again, we're not on a preset path.
Ultimately, we're going to get back down to 2% inflation. It may take a year or two to get all the way there.
The American consumer has proved resilient through it all. Frustrated, but resilient as they head into another holiday shopping season. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
Atra, thank you. President Biden is on a 6-day trip to Latin America for the last major global meetings of his term. Today, on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, he met with South Korean and Japanese leaders as concerns grow about North Korea. He'll then go to Brazil to meet with the leaders of the G20 countries. Alaska Airlines and federal officials are investigating a recent emergency landing caused by a broken tire. The airline said a plane flying from D.C. to L.A. had a tire failure during takeoff and declared an emergency landing at LAX. No one got hurt. Authorities at Washington Dulles International Airport found debris on a runway that could have been from the tire. The Washington, D.C. area is seeing an unprecedented spike in walking pneumonia at hospitals and urgent care centers. Doctors say an unusual strain is attacking younger kids more than ever, and antibiotics are running low at this point. MedStar says cases increased over 350% from a year ago.
We're not sure why we're seeing such an unusual surge and why, again, in that younger age group, many people want to blame like the lockdowns of the pandemic, but many of these kids weren't even born at that time yet, right? So it doesn't make sense. One thought is that there is like a new strain of the mycoplasma or the walking pneumonia that seems to be more aggressive in that age group.
And you can stop the spread by covering your nose and mouth when you sneeze or cough and washing your hands regularly. The United States obesity problem is getting larger. Almost 260 million people in the United States could be overweight or obese by 2050. That's according to a new study published in the Lancet Medical Journal. Researchers say currently about 213 million are in that category right now, including more than 43 million children and adolescents. That is up from 200 million in the same study from 3 years ago. Obesity can lead to health complications, including diabetes, cardiovascular issues, and mental health challenges. And tonight we are looking at the newest breast cancer numbers. Unfortunately, they're up, especially among younger women, those under the age of 50. Medical reporter Barbara Moore shows us how in that group the numbers are going up 1% every year.
It's likely due to multiple things, likely some modifiable lifestyle changes, such as obesity. Diet is very important, potentially access to screening, environmental factors.
Dr. Ashley Stuckey is a gynecologic oncologist and breast surgeon at Women and Infants Hospital in Rhode Island. Some of those environmental factors may include exposure to smoke, alcohol, and indoor and outdoor chemicals and pollutants. Whatever the cause, it's important to have your baseline screening mammogram by the age of 40, younger if you have a family history.
In some women who are younger, we do see more aggressive breast cancers, but in general, overall, we're just seeing a higher increase in women under the age of 50.
The good news is the death rate is going down due to early screening and improved treatments. The earlier you find a cancer, the better these treatments work. For those too young for a mammogram or in between screenings,
it's about being comfortable with your breast. Get used to what your breasts normally feel like, but it could be something on your skin that looks different. It could be something that you palpate like a lump. But anything that is out of the ordinary should be investigated.
So again, screening should begin at age 40, younger if you have a family history or feel a lump. There are two schools of thought on how often you should be screened, every year or every other year. That's a discussion with your doctor, but most insurers will cover an annual mammogram. I'm medical reporter Barbara Morse.
And coming up, a North Carolina woman said she was denied by FEMA after her home was destroyed by Helene. How the agency is responding when we come back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin with growing frustration with FEMA among hurricane victims in North Carolina.
Most of her appliances are now on the back porch. It's the only part of Teresa Keegan's home that's still standing.
My car was crunched and my house was crunched.
The rest is now in piles. The home's frame twisted. Keegan escaped, and within 48 hours, she says she called FEMA.
I called. I told her everything that had happened. She gave me a case number, and the next day I was denied.
If you do have insurance, FEMA will ask you to provide some documentation from your insurance provider about what insurance has covered, and then you can tell us what your needs are beyond that.
Pisgah Legal's Max Gibbons says no matter what, you can always appeal FEMA's decision and reminds everyone to document everything.
This lawsuit filed this week by a Louisville woman challenges Kentucky's near total ban on abortion. The suit claims that state laws outlawing abortion violate a woman's constitutional rights to privacy and self-determination.
Mary Poe released a statement saying in part, quote, "This is my personal decision, a decision I believe should be mine alone, not one made by anyone else." But the Family Foundation of Kentucky's Nick Spencer argues the state's abortion restrictions are meant to protect everyone.
To say that one individual's right to liberty
gives them the ability to terminate the life of another is entirely nonsensical. And we hope that the court will agree with us in that and that they will dismiss this lawsuit.
Just a general consensus. No one wants to live with a room that has black mold in it or a mushroom growing inside of it, right?
Students calling mold a major problem on OSU campus.
Any type of black mold or fungal growth or anything that's happening in these dormitories needs to be addressed immediately to the student body. It is a health concern.
Why do we pay to live like this? Chris Cade and Armand Chandri are university senators bringing a resolution calling for the university to address student concerns, potential mold across all dorms. Cade and Chandri are hoping the university will offer frequent deep cleaning services to shared restrooms.
And coming up, what to expect from tonight's highly anticipated fight between ex-heavyweight champ Mike Tyson and former YouTuber Jake Paul. It's the fight that has the boxing world abuzz. Ex-heavyweight champ Mike Tyson and YouTube sensation turned fighter Jake Paul going head-to-head tonight in one of the biggest boxing events of the year. Millions expected to tune in to see if Tyson, now 58 years old and retired from boxing, can take down Paul, a 27-year-old rising star who just began his professional boxing career 4 years ago. The two of them already gave us a little taste of the action that we're in for tonight. Mike Tyson hitting Jake Paul yesterday at the weigh-in. Jake Paul, however, appearing to remain tough in the face of it all, vowing to take down the legend when they face off tonight. And it all airs on Netflix at 8 p.m. This also marks the streaming platform's first ever professional sports live stream. I'm very excited to watch it. That's what I'll be doing tonight. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage on America's top stories. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful night.